fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again. Another Unchurched. This one, I already know is going to be special. I already know it's going to be powerful. I watched the video about Kris's daughter prior to getting on this, and you guys might be able to see some of the tears that I had. It brought back a lot of memories. I've shared this story before on a prior podcast. Our youngest son, Jackson, when he was born, I was holding him. And obviously, when you're holding your baby, it's happiness, regardless if they're just born or they're 3 years old or 9 years old. And I still remember the nurse's face looking at Jackson and looking at me. And I just, you knew something was wrong. And he started turning blue and wasn't breathing. And long story short, that led into, him, basically almost kind of dying there in the hospital. And thank goodness, just some amazing doctors and nurses and technology. 11 days later, in the NICU, we spent 11 nights in that hospital. And it was probably one of the better things that happened to my wife and I in terms of trust and in terms of really just looking to God and also feeling like you had no control, but the only way we were going to get any control and freedom was to trust and have faith. And this story is on a whole different level. I mean, like I said, I got tears and goosebumps all together listening to this. And so Kris and I, kind of the backstory on how we met, we are both in just a really amazing group called C12. And Kris has joined our group in Champions Gate quite a few times, gotten to know him and gotten to hear a little bit of the story. And this crisis guide, of all things, keeps popping up, doesn't it, Kris?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Real quick, tell me what's the craziest story that you've heard about this showing up somewhere?
Oh, there's so many of them. I'll always have somebody, send me a picture and say, found this in California, or, it's found its way to a lot of places and into the hands of a lot of people who need it. And that's why it was written. So as far as a crazy one, though, nothing pops into my mind that's just way out there.
I hear, our mutual friend Kevin from C12 always brings it up. He's like, someone sent me another picture of this crisis guide. And I mean, it's 32 pages, and we're going to talk about this. I really believe that a lot of people need this. I needed this. I still need to have this. It sits in my office at all times. I've given this out and referred it to people. And a lot of this came about because of your daughter's story, correct?
It all came about because
it all
of
did.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, hit me with it, man. Hit us with it.
All right, I'll hit you with my best shot. How's that sound? So 2008, Christmas time, family wasn't feeling well. Everybody, how you get the cold, and everybody's kind of sniffling and stuff. And we all started feeling better, but my 9-year-old daughter at the time just couldn't seem to shake it. To make a long story short, first she started at her pediatrician, where they gave her a breathing treatment and an antibiotic, and said, you'll be fine by Christmas. Okay. And that didn't prove to be the case. By Christmas Eve morning, she couldn't get out of bed. I carried her to the car, and my wife, Robin, took her to the pediatrician again, and they were only there for like 30 seconds, and they called the ambulance and sent her to the hospital. That's when I got a call from my wife, Robin, saying, I don't know what's going on, but can you get to the hospital? When we got there, that's when we found out she had a condition called viral myocarditis. And what that means is that the virus she had, we all had at the same time. It just passed through us like a normal cold, but with her, it settled in her heart. And that's a rare thing that happens. But when it does, there's basically 3 diagnoses for it. If it's not too bad, you can survive with complications. You could have to have a heart transplant to survive, or you die from it. And, we began that day to pray that she'd be in the good 1/3. You know, it was clearly you survived with complications. You have a heart transplant or you die. We were praying for the good 1/3, but by about 8 o'clock that night, it was clear she was not going to be in the good 1/3. She was having a hard time breathing, and I'll never forget, they were putting her on a breathing tube and, you know, basically life support equipment in essence. And the last words she screamed out were that I'm going to die.
Wow.
And they asked us if we would leave the room after she said that, which we did. It's been a real hard, long night. Came in early the next morning, and she was on full life support. And
I'm tearing up just listening to this, dude.
It was a crazy thing, dude. And that's when the doctor said, "There's nothing we can do for your daughter. These machines can keep her alive, but there's no medicine. There's no nothing. She's just gonna have to heal on her own." And that's what we call the greatest Christmas gift ever. You kind of mentioned it a little bit with your son, what you went through. But the reason we call it the greatest Christmas gift ever was at that moment of the greatest fear that a parent could possibly have of having their child on life support and being told by the doctors there's nothing we can do for her.
Yeah.
We just felt this sense of peace. You know, it's the peace that passes all understanding. It was a scenario of we can freak out or we can trust God. And I just feel like he gave Robin and I the peace we needed. And I said to Robin, I go, you know, when the doctor said there's nothing that they could do, I heard, in essence, God saying, only I can do this. And Robin said, when the doctor said there's nothing we can do, what I heard is she's not in the doctor's hands anyhow. She's in God's hands.
Wow. And,
you know, we hugged and cried and prayed and everything. But we came to the agreement that if the Lord wanted to keep her in heaven, and that was his plan, that it was okay.
So was she in a coma at this point?
She was in it was a induced coma, as they, you know, put her under. But it was 100% life support equipment. You know, she was in a coma and machines were keeping her alive. It was about 4 days of that. And they told us, you know, she can't stay alive much longer on this type of machine. And they told us about a experimental machine at the time. It wasn't approved by the FDA. It was an artificial heart for kids that this company was trying to get approved by the FDA so that they could use it. It's since been approved, but at the time we had to become a part of a medical experiment. And there was a doctor at Shands at the University of Florida that this would be his 4th time using it. And
just what a parent wants to hear, right?
Yeah. But it was, she's going to die or we can try this. Yeah. So, you know, again, there was peace, and, you know, we prayed a lot about it. Do we have her be a medical experiment? And we agreed that we would. So they put her on this machine, and, you know, it was an unbelievable machine. It actually pulled her. They hooked into her heart, and it would pull her blood out of her body into these pumps that sat outside of her body and then back into her body, so that it actually became her heart.
Wow.
And but the cool thing was this machine mimics a true heart. So she was able to recover while on this machine. They had told us that, you know, once they put her on the machine, they were able to do way more checks than they were prior. And one of the things they told us was that a blood clot had broke free, and that she had a stroke and she might not talk again. And worse than that, if the stroke were too bad, she would not be a candidate for a heart transplant. And that's when I saw my wife do one of the greatest moments of faith that I've ever seen. And she just comforted the doctor and said, our daughter's in God's hands, and we know she's going to be okay. You know, now I love my wife, and she's not normally the one who is just calm like that. And, you know, she's the one that, you know, gets excited. And, but man, she just had the Lord all over her, and she trusted him. And, you know, that example for me, I needed to trust the Lord with the strength that my bride had. And so that's what we did. It took about 2 days, but she came out of her coma. she began to recover. While on that other machine, her kidneys had shut down, her liver wasn't operating properly. So they had all these specialists coming in, and they were like, you don't need me anymore. It's a miracle. I can't believe what's happening here. There's no reason for this. Her liver's healed. Her kidneys are fine. Things like that.
Wow.
But she still hadn't become conscious enough to say anything. And, you remember the last words she said, I'm going to die. As much as that blew me away, her next words were even more touching. She let it grip my hand real softly and said, Daddy, I love you. From I'm going to die to Daddy, I love you. For a second, I just was like, I wonder how God must feel, If we're in the middle of the crisis, we're in the middle of something that's just got us down, and, even to the point of, am I going to make it? To look up and say, Daddy, I love you. To look to the Lord and say, this really sucks, but I love you. I trust you, just an unbelievable experience. And, I'd love to say it got easy from then on, but it was really tough. A 9-year-old living on a machine in an intensive care unit at the University of Florida. Oh, man, she was there for 4 long months.
4 months.
4 months, yeah.
Wow.
Some days she suffered life and death type situations. She almost died a couple times. Some days it was just the simple things, getting up and going to the bathroom and hurt and pain, and, having bandages taken off and skin. And she had so many shots. Her arms were just blue. And, it was to sit and see your child in such pain, and, you want to take their place, but you can't. All you can do is trust that no matter how bad this is, it's in God's hands, and we're gonna live by this peace. We're gonna live by this knowledge that He control, and we're gonna accept whatever the outcome is because it's in His hands. On April 15, they called and said I had gone home to do some work, and Robin called me and said they might have a heart for Grayson, and I was like, what do I do?
Because you're CEO of a company, right? It's a big company. You've got a lot of.
But what do you do when they call you and tell you that? I didn't have any training for that. She goes, well, get up here. So I grabbed our boys. My boys were, they were 11 and 7 at the time, she being 9, and we drove up there, and on April 15 of 2009, she got a heart transplant. And since the theme of this whole story is trust God, I couldn't skip not telling you about her prayer. Before she went in to get the heart transplant, I did the dad prayer. Dear God, make sure the doctors do have wisdom and do everything well, and make sure this heart is perfect. Asking and telling Him what I want, everything, which there's nothing wrong. I mean, the Bible says, make your requests made known to the Lord. So that's what I did. And, I call it the dad prayer. I told God everything I wanted and asked Him to do it. And then it was her time to pray, and she's 9 years old, and she says, Dear God, thank you that you made us in a heart, and I pray that it would heal me. But I want you to know if it doesn't work out the way I want it to, I'm still going to trust you.
Whoa.
That was her prayer, dude.
That's deep.
I mean, it just floored me. Here I am praying for everything I want. And this child says, you know what, God, even if it doesn't work out, I'm still going to trust you. I mean, what kind of faith is that? The Bible talks about the faith of a child shall lead us. It's that kind of faith that God uses to move our mountains. There's a scripture verse that always kind of bothered me. It said, if you just have a little faith, you could tell that mountain to go cast itself into the sea. And it just never made any sense to me. How are you going to have enough faith to tell a mountain to move into the sea? Well, that's the key. Is it's faith that God uses to move our mountains for us. It's not mountains we move because of our faith. It's mountains He moves because of our faith. And he moved our mountain. That night she received a perfect heart and a new opportunity at life. And, it's been quite a ride. In fact, she's now 21. Her birthday was yesterday. She had her 21st birthday yesterday, and she's back at the University of Florida, but this time as a student. She's a junior at the University of Florida, where she was given a second chance at life, and now she's a college student there. So it's quite a story for sure.
Whew. Yeah. Sorry for tearing up on you so much, man. That was, I had not heard a lot of that before. And I'm envisioning, obviously I told you about my son, but I'm envisioning, my two daughters, and man, I mean, just talk about God speaking through a little girl to you guys. What tell me, like, what that did for you and your family, during that time, and now as things have progressed. Was that something that you guys not necessarily needed, but does that make sense? Was it something that, looking back, like that was the biggest blessing that's ever happened to our family?
Oh yeah. When you can look back at your greatest pain, I call it your crucible moment, when it becomes real. Is my faith real? Am I going to trust my faith, or am I going to turn from it? Am I going to get angry at God for allowing something like this to happen? Or am I going to realize that he's in control of everything and trust him no matter what the outcome? It's those crucible moments when we really grow the most. And, in my life, I've been through some stuff, but nothing like that. So I learned more in that than anything I've ever experienced. Now, the most important things that I learned in it, I'll tell you a quick story. This applies to anybody that's watching or listening to this. Toward the April or so, I started going home a lot to work because I had to. It was the downturn, and our business was failing, and I needed to be involved. And I got my daughter in this hospital. I had to go do some work. And so Robin and I took turns. I usually was there on the weekends, and she was there during the week. And it was time for her to relieve me and for me to go. And I had spent all day watching Little House on the Prairie episodes with Grayson. Did you know there was like 7 seasons of that show?
I believe it.
And I've watched every one of them in that hospital. But no, all day we watched them, and it was time to go. And I kind of lingered by the curtain there. And Robin said, "How was your day?" And Grayson said, "Mom, it was amazing." Dad's phone rang like 12 times, and he never answered it once. Wow. Here's my little girl clinging to life by a machine. And what mattered the most to her that day was I didn't answer my phone, that I was there with her. That led to, I ended up having a meeting with all my kids and apologizing and saying, I've made, my business was always more important than you guys. And when the phone rang,
I'm crying because I needed to hear that, dude. Man.
Man, I tell you, when my phone rang, they pretty well knew who was the most important. It was whoever was on the other end of that phone call. And, I still answer my phones, and I still struggle with that. And I still, but just the fact of letting them know that, you are important to me. And I hate it that you felt that way when my phone rang, and I would ignore whatever I was doing with you and take my phone and make that my focus. Then the other most important thing is just, we talked about it earlier, the trust factor, is if you really believe God's in control, then you got to trust and accept whatever the outcome is. We have the faith, he provides the outcome. And, that is pretty much the way it is in anything we face. So,
So she lived. You guys spent months in the hospital. Tons of learning lessons. Man, the last one hit me the hardest because I think, especially as leaders of company, regardless if you're a man or woman or have sons or daughters, it's something that we all struggle with.
Yeah. And
man, that hit me hard. But where did all this crisis survive? I mean, were these notes that you were taking? And obviously, there's biblical verses in here and some scripture. How did this whole thing come about?
Yeah. So, what we did, it was a thing called, it was new at the time, it was called Caring Bridge. What I was doing was texting people. I was getting so many texts from people. How's she doing? What's going on today? How can I pray for you? you could spend all day trying to figure out how to answer text. So we started this, it's, for lack of a better term, it's like a blog, and where we would just post how she was doing that day, important things that were going on in us. And we would post scriptures or prayers that we had prayed or whatever. So when we got out of there, we had all this material. And what we first did was put a book together called Grayson's Song that is the story of that and what we learned through it. What I learned from that, though, is that when people are going through crisis, they don't really want to spend a few hours hearing about somebody else's crisis. They just really want to hear, how can this help me? And the crisis guide, that little booklet, actually came from the lessons that are in the Grayson's Song book. And, you know, we wanted to make it small so you could put it in your pocket. We wanted to make it look good so that, you know, people wouldn't just take it and toss it. And you know, I don't know the number, but it's somewhere over 50,000 we've given out through chaplaincies, through hospitals, through, you've given some out, you know, the C12 members give them out. You know, those are the stories we talk about. And it's just to put that hope in people's hands. You know, we often say, if you're feeling for someone and you would pray for them, or you would send them a card, why not send them hope? And send them this crisis guide that has the lessons that we learned, the top 10 lessons we learned in going through a process like that. And that's what the crisis guide is all about. And
have you had to come back to it since then?
Oh my goodness, yes, all the time. In fact, I'll do another quick greatest lesson. To me, the best lesson in the crisis guide is it's the whole situation. Okay. So when you're in a situation like that, you want to ask God, why would this happen? I mean, I was doing that. Why, Lord, would this happen to the purest heart I know? Why would you allow this to happen, God? You know, we're asking him why. Why am I in this situation? So whatever crisis you're in, you know, we often want to know, why is this happening to me?
Yep.
But a better question is to ask God, what are you up to, God? What should I be praying for? What should I be looking for? What's my next step of faith? You know, when you want to ask why, instead ask what. Then the other thing is, when you're in this scenario like this, it's the waiting. It's the hardest part. You know, you're in a crisis and you want it to end, and you're sitting there going, when will this ever end? You know, when is this going to get back to normal? Take the COVID, you know, when is this ever going to, you know, when your daughter's in a hospital and you don't know if she's going to get a heart, and you don't know how the story's going to end, you don't know when it's going to end. You just constantly every day, when is this going to end? Well, a better thing to do is, knowing that the Lord has a plan, is to just simply ask him to work his plan. So when you want to ask when, a better thing to do is ask the Lord to work his plan. Then finally, it's worry. You know, when you wake up every morning thinking you're living a dream, a terrible nightmare, how can this be? What's going to happen today? Is she going to survive today? You know, are we going to make it today? Is our business going to shut down today? Is what, you know, you're worried, and you're in this constant sense of worry. And when that happens, it's totally normal in a crisis. The best thing you can do is turn to the Lord and worship him. You know, and it doesn't mean break out in song. It doesn't mean, you know, there's so many ways to worship him, but one way to worship him is to say, Lord, I'm going to give you my worry, because you are the Lord Almighty, and you are the one who can do something about this. When we worry, we're thinking about ourselves and we're focused on ourselves. When we worship, we think about him and we focus on him. He's the one who can do something about our situation. So we shouldn't ask God, why did this happen? We should ask him, what are you doing and what should I be doing? We shouldn't ask when. We should just ask him to work his plan and trust that his plan is perfect. And when we're in worry, we just turn it, give it to him, worship him, and ask him to take it. That's what trusting God in crisis is all about.
So there's a question that we get quite a bit, and I struggle with the answer, and even with your story. I mean, obviously it had a very positive outcome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, could say, well, you know, I prayed, or maybe they did or didn't pray or trust, and I lost that family member, I lost that child or spouse. What do you tell someone like that? Because it's once again, it's something I struggle with. It seems easy to say, oh yeah, you just have to have faith, but I can't even imagine, you know, the also the pain that would have happened, you know, had she not made it.
Right.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, I've actually had people ask me, what do you think you'd have done if she'd have died? And My only answer is, I don't know. But I like to think that I'd have the same faith and I'd still have the same trust. And I'd know that it was God's plan for her to be in heaven with him. And she served her time here on earth and now she's with the Lord, and I'll see her again one day. We actually had some friends that lost a child in the midst of our we were going through similar scenarios. It was a totally different medical issue, but the child died.
Wow.
And, they are examples of that type of faith. I mean, they lost their child, yet they still have the same faith that we do. And, I like to think that my faith would have been the same as theirs. And it should, I mean, faith isn't about getting what you want. Faith is about trusting what you get and knowing that God has a plan. So
can you repeat that again? Faith is not getting what you want.
I don't know if I can say it again. Faith isn't about getting what you want.
Yeah.
Faith is about getting what you get and trusting that God's in control and he has a plan for you.
I love it. We had a fellow C12 member that had discussed that about, losing a young one in their life. And he said what got them through it was that belief that God needed that little girl up in heaven more than he needed her down on earth. And it hit me when he said it, and I'll never forget that. I hope I don't ever have to, go through that personally. But man, I've shared that with multiple people, and that's powerful when you can have a mind shift like that God needed he or she up in heaven more than he needed her down on earth, had bigger plans for her.
I think that's what gave us the peace, of knowing that if she wasn't coming back here, she was in the perfect place. And if she did come back, that's what we wanted. And in our case, thankfully she did, but she was in the perfect place. In fact, she actually talked about it, that she wanted to stay. I mean,
wow.
She had one of those, near death experiences where, she felt she knew where she was. She said she was surrounded by light and just the best feeling ever, and didn't want to go back. Obviously, I'm glad she did.
Yeah.
But she shared that with us about a week after she came out of her coma.
And doesn't remember much after that, just the warmth and the feeling and light.
Yeah. Well, her thing was she felt like she was in a cold, grimy pit and couldn't get out of the cold, grimy pit. And then there was this just amazing light that encompassed her and made her feel good and made her know that everything was okay, and that she knew it was the Lord's light and that she was filled with his light and his love. And she just felt like there's nothing better than this. And then she came back, and again, it's just so odd to hear your little girl say, I'm glad I'm here, but I didn't really want to come back. There's hope there, man. I mean, Think about that. So, you did the story of the C12 member whose child died, she's in a better place.
Yeah. Man.
And I believe that wholeheartedly, and more than just by hearing it or reading about it. I saw my daughter go through that. So it's real.
What a story, brother. So talk about, I know you've got Grace and Song, and obviously this is the kind of the abridged version. Like you said, look sharp. It sits on someone's desk and it kind of gets attention, and it's powerful. I mean, you can read it, and certainly not even an hour, right? It's super quick. Yeah. You've got another book as well, and I think part 2, or I guess version 2 of it coming out.
Yeah, years ago I wrote a book called Shine. Our companies use that as our mission statement. It's from Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before men, that they'll see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So asking what would that look like? If Jesus came to work at our company, what are the key things he'd be doing? And it's an acronym: serving others, honoring God, improving continually, taking the gifts and talents he gives us and using them for his glory, navigating by values, not just having values, but actually letting them be seen by the way you live your life, and then excel in relationships is the E. That's really why we are in business, or really why we're on this earth, is to excel in relationships with the people that we come in contact with. So those are the 5 principles that we've tried to run our business by. And I did write a Christian business book about it in 2008. Interesting, it came out, and that was the same year that my daughter had the tragic scenario.
Wow.
And I thought I'd written it to encourage others, but I learned I had written it to carry me through the darkness, that tough time, is because your light's needed the most when it's dark all around you.
Yeah.
And your light makes the biggest impact when it's dark all around you. To have faith when you're walking through something like that makes an impact. My wife would walk through the intensive care unit singing praise songs, and everybody knew it was her daughter on the experimental machine that may not make it to the next day, yet she was a light in the midst of that. And just the power of that. It's great to praise the Lord on the mountaintop, but when you're in the dark valley, it's when it's needed the most. So anyhow, it's 2020 now, and the publisher asked me if I would do an updated version, and we've actually included Grayson's story into the new book now, because obviously it hadn't happened the first time. So it's still the same principles, still laid out the same way. Newer stories, testimonies of employees or customers, and the impact that trying to run a business for God's glory has had. And again, I say trying. We don't do it. We do not do it on it. But I have customers who go, "You are not shining today." Believe me, friend. It's not a book about look at us, look how we shine. It's a book about this is what we aspire to be. We would love to run our business in a way that it would bring God's glory. And, these principles are a way that we can do that.
And tell everyone your company in case they want to work with someone amazing like you in those aspirations.
Vermeer Southeast. It's a construction equipment company. We're headquartered in Orlando, and we have 14 locations across Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and the Caribbean islands. So, I've been doing it for over 30 years. I haven't been trying to honor and glorify God for 30 years. And that's part of the story of, I was trying to honor and glorify Kris. Mm-hmm. And I was doing pretty good at it too. When I came in and things kind of took off, when I first started working there, we were doing about 6 million in sales, and we did over 150 million last year. So we experienced great growth. And in the 90s, when I was, coming up, and I took a lot of the credit for that, but the Lord showed me what really mattered in life wasn't how many pieces of equipment I sold, but how many people he could impact through our company. And, the Bible tells you to seek first my kingdom and my righteousness, and I'll give you all this other stuff as well. So, if that became, again, the aspiration, I'd love it if we could glorify God in our work and do that. So, that's what we aspire to.
I love it, man. And I mean, and even just this, you have a few books now, and this never would have happened had you not gone, through that challenging time with your daughter. And,
correct.
For those of you listening, to put it in perspective, Kris and I are both authors.
Mm-hmm.
If this has been given out and printed 50,000 times, the average book, like on Amazon, there's many that you never even hear about. Obviously, they might sell 150 copies, maybe, is like probably the average. Some books sell 4 or 5 copies to their close friends. So 50,000. Think about all the people that you've been able to impact, and how many times this has been shared. And I know you've shared this kind of message, in a lot of different events. And it's really is amazing how God is worked through your daughter and through you. And so I just want to appreciate you, man. This was awesome. I certainly needed to hear this in a lot of different aspects. For those when I can't, this will be one I can't even go rewatch because I hate to see myself crying like that. But I even took a couple notes because this was powerful, man. This is a really special one. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. So, and where can they go find this? Is this on actually, you know what? I'm going to put you on the spot. We talked about doing a PDF version that I could put in the show notes. Because that won't cost you any money. I know you don't have to print off thousands of these for all the people who listen, but if you can give me the PDF, I would love to have that.
Yeah,
available.
I will get you the PDF. And we're actually, this is a bad time. I'm down and I don't have many copies and I need to have more printed. I'll probably have 10,000 of them printed again here in the next few weeks. But we maybe you come back later on a later one and say, hey, these are available now and get them out there.
I will do it. But yeah, the PDF would be a awesome start. And when you get that 10,000, let me know. I will certainly buy some from you and give these out to some people that I know need it. And man, brother, what a story, dude. I'm still, I don't think I've ever cried that much on a podcast. So,
well, I'm glad I could do that for you.
Yeah. well, brother,
that's what we're given they call it testimony. You have to have a test, and a testimony is sharing what the Lord's done. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share what the Lord's done with your audience. And keep it up, man. I really love what you're doing, and I know I've told you before, the Lord has big plans for you and what you guys are up to, and Salt Strong, and stay strong, keep going. I love it.
Yep. Thank you, brother. Kris DenBesten, everybody, and we'll put links to Amazon too if you want to check out his other books. It's KrisDenBesten. Is that right?
Oh, well, you're close. It is KRIS, but the last name
DenBesten. What did I say? Did I say Ben?
Yeah, it's okay. I've heard a lot worse. People have butchered it way worse than you did, dude.
Hey, that's why I have to have Simons like diamonds. People always say Simmons.
Well, mine is DenBesten, the best one.
Ooh, I like it.
Actually, it's supposed to mean that in my native Netherlands. I've been told that. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I've been told that DenBesten means the best one. So I'm going with it, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, I won't even Google it. I don't want to ruin it for you. So
yeah, don't do that.
Kris DenBesten, not Ben Besten.
There you go.
I actually said it right and just spelled it wrong in my head. So we'll put links to all of the books.
ShineVision.com does get you to a ministry that sells the books, and the ministry gets all the proceeds from it. So I know he still has some. So ShineVision.com.
Got it. I got it down, my friend.
Okay.
Cool. Brother Kris, thank you again. This has been awesome. I look forward to seeing you at one of the future C12 meetings.
Absolutely.
My friend, and everyone listening, thank you so much. If you have any questions, we will put this video, all the show notes, everything. It's saltstrong.com/unchurched. I know a lot of you are listening in your car, working out, etc. So saltstrong.com/unchurched, and you will see that there. And at the bottom of the actual post is a place for you to put comments. And I will make sure to reply to everyone. And if I can't answer it, I will forward over to my friend Kris. So, guys, thank you so much for all the support, all the love. We can't do it without you. And we will talk to you on the next show. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was